Volkswagen has been touting its latest third-party mid-size three-row SUV, to be built alongside the Passat in Chattanooga, for years now. A concept version called the Cross Blue first appeared 3.5 years ago. But now, it's finally real, and we've just driven a pre-production prototype of the company's answer to the Ford Explorer and the Toyota Highlander. One reason it has taken so long is that the Tennessee factory had to be expanded and equipped for this North America-focused machine. We also toured a plant where test cars are now being assembled. Full production is expected to start in mid-December, with the SUV appearing in dealerships early in the second quarter of 2017 as a 2018 model. You'll notice we haven't named this SUV yet. That's because VW has yet to do so. Officials said they have a name in mind and clarified that the SUV will wear a different name in North America, its primary market, than it will in export form. VW said it was negotiating with another automaker on a name. Reading between the lines, it could be that the badge they want for our model is an out-of-fuse trademark. Built on VW's MQB platform, the production model retains a character line running the full length of the vehicle above the wheels, but it's less accentuated than it was on the Cross Coupe GT-E concept, a follow-up to the original Cross Blue, that was displayed at the 2015 Detroit Auto Show. The distinctive line looks better than it did when overstated on the concept and is probably easier to produce for the sheet metal supplier Gestamp, which is co-located at the Chattanooga Industrial Park surrounding VW's factory. The car we drove was camouflaged on both ends, but we saw the complete body in white and, briefly, one finished and uncovered vehicle during our factory tour. In stance and dimensions, it resembles the Ford Explorer but with Passat-like details and cues. Also different from the concept is that pillar liftgate portion, which is more upright, is expected. The liftgate opens conventionally with a release above the license plate, rather than employing a swiveling VW badges both the release mechanism and handle in the clever manner of the Golf's hatchback. We couldn't open the liftgate on our drive because the camo interfered, but it had a power-operated lift mechanism that kicked in when we tried the release. Getting into its entry to the driver's seat is via an easy, car-like motion, much like getting into a Toyota Highlander, with less of a step up than is required for the Explorer. The example we drove was a V6 powered all-wheel drive model, and our experience was limited to gravel roads and an excursion onto groomed off-roading trails in Tennessee's Prentice Cooper State Forest, about 45 minutes away from the factory. The base model will be front-wheel drive with VW's 2.0-litre turbocharged four-cylinder, which makes 200 horsepower in the smaller Tiguan. The car we drove had the 3.6-litre narrow-angle V6, which generates 280 horses in today's Tiguan Passat. VW hasn't released final power ratings for this application, but we don't expect them to vary far from those figures. We anticipate 0 to 60 mph times will be in the low 8-second range with the 4 and in the low 7s for the V6. In comparison, the Explorer's top engine, a 365 horsepower 3.5-litre turbocharged V6, delivers 60 miles per hour from a stop in 6 seconds flat, while the Highlander's naturally aspirated 3.5-litre V6 does the deed in 7.3 seconds. We have yet to test the 2017 Highlander with its updated V6. The Ford and Toyota SUVs are the top sellers in the segment and VW's primary targets, although for driving pleasure we prefer the Dodge Durango and the Mazda CX-9. VW is leaving the door open to a possible diesel variant of its new SUV, but those might all be left to export markets. More likely as a hybrid in later model years, but officials would not indicate whether they had in mind a conventional hybrid like that used in the Toyota Highlander or a plug-in like the one VW showed in that 2015 concept. If we had to put money down, we'd bet on the latter. Volkswagen Cross Coupe GT concept seen side by side, VW's new three-row vehicle looks only a little larger than the Tiguan, but it is much more spacious inside, largely because the engine is mounted transversely. It's longitudinal in the Tiguan. The one we drove had a 6,040 split-folding second-row bench seat and 8-passenger capacity. We expect VW also will offer central captain's chairs for a 7-seat configuration, given that its primary competitors do so. The new VW also is meant to sell at prices closer to the heart of the US market for such large crossovers, starting in the $30,000 range, where the Tiguan has been hampered by being a more premium vehicle with stickers typically in the $50,000 neighborhood. VW will continue to offer the Tiguan in America, but its hopes for expanded sales volumes rest in this new model. It will be joined on the lower end by a long wheelbase, 3-row version of the new Tiguan and, in some future model year, by an even smaller crossover. The current Toro Tiguan may continue alongside the new, longer one until that smaller vehicle is ready. The new SUV, it will be easier to keep this all straight when it gets a name, has a Passat-inspired instrument panel and a flat-bottomed steering wheel with controls for the eyepiece center-mounted information screen and audio system. It all looked like standard MQB hardware, but most of the rectilinear dashboard was camouflage, and we never saw the infotainment system display at its center. Driving the whatever it's called, a console-mounted dial offers selections among all-wheel drive modes: snow, sport, on-road, and off-road. The latter is customizable, presumably via a touch-screen menu, and we were told it had been set up specifically for our drive on the trail through the forest. As in the Golf-based track wagon we also sampled briefly on these gravel roads, the all-wheel drive system is on-demand most of the time, sending torque to the rear axle only in low traction situations. In these pavement-free circumstances, we never got to experience it in front-wheel drive mode, although we did manage a mile or two of 45 to 50 miles per hour in sport mode, which tightens steering response and amends the throttle and transmission programming. On the gravel roads, the vehicle we drove felt solid, quiet, and smooth in operation, with comfortable seating and with good sightlines outward, excepting only the rear quarters, where the windows were partially covered by camouflage. Acceleration was more than sufficient for the conditions and felt on par with or a little better than a Highlander, but not as vigorous as that of the Ford Explorer Sport, just as you might expect. Steering and handling reminded us immediately of the Passat, while the brakes felt strong. On the off-road trails through the woods, the all-wheel drive system performed well, and the vehicle exhibited long, supple suspension travel, which is useful in rough terrain. The trail didn't present any challenges that had us wishing for the greater abilities of a trail-rated Jeep, but it was more extreme than most owners will ever attempt and narrow enough to drive the parking sensors nuts with warning beeps as we progressed at appropriately cautious speeds. The suspension height is not adjustable, and while hill descent control worked well and appropriately in response to brake and throttle inputs, there's no button to engage it on command. This is not a vehicle for dedicated off-road adventurers, but like several others in the segment, it performed beyond our modest expectations. In other respects, too, VW seems to be on target. For instance, the center bench reclines, and it also folds forward and slides to ease entry to the third row from either side, with a cleverly designed release handle atop the seatback that can be flipped forward or backward to simplify use from outside or from behind the seat. There's room enough to leave an empty child safety seat installed in the second row while folding the seat forward to access the third row. And both back rows can be folded flat for an expansive cargo hold. A tall adult can sit in the way back seats with the center row slid forward one notch from its rearmost position, which also leaves enough legroom for a 6-footer in the middle row. Cargo space behind the third row looks ample for a familiar-size load of groceries and not as cramped as in some 3-row SUVs, although, as noted earlier, we couldn't open the liftgate and had to eyeball it from the seat side. Expect VW to be aggressive about marketing its new family mobile, for which it has high hopes to expand US sales volume. The automaker has added 26% more floor area to the factory, which had previously been expanded for the midterm update of the Passat, and it's now populated with more than twice as many robots, 850 versus 420. The company is adding 700 plant workers in preparation for the launch of the new SUV and envisions employment will rise to 3,500 from today's 2,400 if all goes according to plan. The new capacity will be 250,000 vehicles annually, well beyond last year's total output of 87,156 Passats. It's a big play, so it is probably appropriate to be careful about giving this mainstream SUV a more palatable name than Twerk.